It starts off wrong and then continues to be wrong.
Hey, thanks for joining the Escape With Me book club. Escape with me, Lizzie Sawyer.
And me, Sam Reiner.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and dive into a new book. Remember, we will be covering it from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers.
Today we are looking at the classic Jane Austen novel, Pride and Prejudice, and comparing it to three mediums, a movie, a TV show, and a musical. Originally published in 1813, Pride and Prejudice has managed to capture the minds then and now, leading to the 1995 BBC TV show, the 2005 movie, and now the 2020 musical. But which one did it best? To start off, we can talk about how the musical is trash, and going forward, we will not even continue to think about it.
I can say whatever I want about the musical because you can't contest me because you only watched 17 minutes in.
It's bad.
They made Elizabeth into a very teen angsty character, which is not what she is in the book or the movie.
I think he was trying to modernize it to be like, oh, we need to identify with the characters, but
he left the time period the same, which negated anything he was attempting to do.
Yeah. So he made Elizabeth be all like, I don't want to get married. I'm above marriage. And that's why she was a rebel, when in actuality, the reason she was a rebel in the 1800s is because she believed in marrying for love and not just marrying for advantage. And that's the counterpoint in Charlotte, who points out it's important to marry well and not know your husband so you don't know what misery you're about to get into. But the musical decided to add a line because, oh, this man is such a brainchild. He's so smart. He realized that what she really meant to say was know little about your husband so he knows little about you. No, that was not the point of Charlotte's speech. Charlotte was not worried about herself.
And that's only within the first couple of minutes of the musical.
That's the first couple lines, actually.
Yep, and then they made Darcy not stoic, not seem prideful at all. He's just kind of awkward with a little dose of frat boy, just a little bit, just a teeny bit, because he's not stoic enough to be able to pull anything off.
Yeah, but they also made Bingley socially awkward.
They did.
And not in a way that the movie did, where it's like, oh my goodness, I just have so many things to talk about. It's actually the opposite. He doesn't know how to talk to Jane. No, that's not what that is. They were so cute. They clicked immediately. That's the point.
I will say, even though you didn't like Darcy's song, and really, I don't either. Darcy needs a soft rock ballad, and I write that several times in my notes, is this particular Darcy character needs a soft rock ballad, but he doesn't get one.
That'd be interesting.
At the beginning of his song, he goes, oh no, I like her. And I was like, yes, that's the epitome of Darcy right there. Oh no, I like her. So that's the only thing he got right.
Yes.
Other than the song for the Duchess, which I can't even remember how it goes. It's the only one that actually carries a tune, and I can't remember how it goes. But essentially, the song is about how everybody has to have the Duchess's approval, and Elizabeth has an underline where she's like, nah, how about no?
Also correct.
So that song's actually decent, except for Elizabeth's line, because he has a bad habit of when he's writing music doing, this is just an analogy, this is not exactly what it is. If you were to take 4/4 time and then fit 7 syllables into 4/4 time, and anybody that knows music automatically cringes at that. And that is essentially what all of the pieces of music are, except for the Duchess's song.
Darcy's song doesn't stick out in my brain whatsoever.
Darcy's song needs to be a rock ballad, and it's not. Needs electric guitar.
Bingley sang about how he doesn't know how to talk, which was dumb.
Bingley knows how to talk. Bingley is socially awkward and a little bit shy, but he can babble his way through anything.
Yeah, there are different ways to be socially awkward. His socially awkward is he just talks. He just says things.
And he's polite and he's charming, and you can tell he's socially awkward, but he's doing his utmost, and it's adorable.
Yes. And then the one song that I knew at that moment, because I thought going in, oh, it'll be bad in a funny way because I enjoy bad things.
No,
I knew it was bad in the disrespectful to the source material when we got to Headstrong.
Haha, yes.
Did you know Elizabeth is headstrong? If you didn't, she's going to sing it to you 22 times.
While insulting herself and the original character.
Because she's headstrong.
Haha, ahaha, aren't I clever? I'm a man and I rewrote Pride and Prejudice into a musical.
There was a joke a couple years back that I saw that I really liked, and it was if Jane Austen was in modern day writing classes and her male classmate was giving her pointers. That's what this felt like.
Yes. A dude mansplained Pride and Prejudice.
It's so dumb because it's not like men can't, because men were on a TV show and the movie from the 1980s, and
yeah.
Why did this man suck at it? Why did he have to be the stereotype?
Because he decided he wanted to mansplain in the form of a musical.
It just feels like what a dude would assume women's issues are if he's never spoken to a woman.
You didn't ever get to it, but another thing that annoyed me about the musical is that they also ruined Kitty's character when Mr. Bennett is like, no, we're done. We're donezo. No more officers. No more parties without a chaperone. We are donezo. In the musical, Kitty just kind of laughs it off and says, oh, father. And I'm like, no. No,
she was devastated. She cried.
This is a teenager.
Boy crazy, obsessive.
This is a 17-year-old girl who's just been told that she cannot
see boys whatsoever. She can't even leave the house without, quote unquote, doing something important for at least 10 minutes, which personally I find more as a joke.
Not silly. She needs to prove she can be intelligent for 15 minutes.
You can tell that this is a bad musical when all of the funny parts of the book, whenever they're said, like the jokes, the audience doesn't laugh because they're so forced in.
If you go and look at the comments on Amazon, because it's on Amazon Prime, I don't know who put it together. A friend at work was like, there's a musical. And I was like, whoa, no way. And so went home and watched it, which is partially how it ended up on here. But if you actually read the comments, they're like, don't believe the haters. This musical is actually very good. And I'm like, you're related to the cast, aren't you?
Believe the haters. Believe all of them.
You care about one of the people that was in the play, don't you? Because it's actually very bad.
Family of the cast, probably.
Which isn't on the actors at all. It's the director.
No, the actors, they can all sing. Granted, I'm still mad at Headstrong because I don't think that specific note is that actress's strong suit.
No, he does not do a great range for her. And it becomes more painfully obvious the further you get into it and the more she sings. And it doesn't help that everything is they try to cram 18 syllables into a very not 18 syllable-esque.
And 16 different octaves. Okay, that was really hyperbolic. But Headstrong has 2 different octaves. And the only reason it has the second one is because at the random, they decided she needs to squeak out Headstrong, while everything else is going to be more in an alto range. Alto, second soprano.
Yeah, and they try to get her into, it's just, she can't. And it's not her fault.
Yeah,
And you can only do so much with really badly written music.
Yeah. And I didn't like how Elizabeth, okay, this sounds weird. Elizabeth talked way too much in the 18 minutes that I watched. Because it is one thing that typically they'll be like, oh, I'm coming out, I'm doing a talking part, I'm talking to the audience, whatever. That's fine, but that needs to taper off at some point. She just kept talking to the audience. No one else. I feel like several times they could have been like, hey, this conversation's happening between Jane and me. This conversation's happening between our parents. But no, the entire time.
Had to have asides. I must have my aside.
Yes. One character talks twice as long aside. Another person says 3 words, 16-word long aside. It did not need the constant aside. Why am I watching the play if you're just going to tell me everything that happens?
I know you saw it one time, but you know how they did the scene change from the house to the ballroom and Mary came forward and was like, whatever ballroom, right?
Yeah.
For the scene change. She does that every scene change. So at that point, I was like, thank you, Mary. Every time she did it. It was the only thing that made my mom laugh. And by the end of it, she was like, this play would be so much better if it had someone like you in the audience going, thank you, Mary. Every time she said where they were.
Parody coming soon, guys.
And what's sad is that was the funniest part of the musical. It was me saying, thank you, Mary, every time she told us where we were.
Mary did it the first time and I was like, okay, that makes sense. It's Mary. But then she did it for Netherfield and also they skipped the first ball.
She does it every time. Every time. Even at the Duchess's Manor, it's her in a maid outfit and she says where they are and then gets into the maid line in the back.
I feel like it would almost be better if it was just a random student. Why Mary? Why is that her only role? Also, if we need somebody to explain every single scene, clearly it's not written well.
What's happening? I don't know. Let me tell you. It's mansplaining through Elizabeth's character. He's like, I don't think you'll understand what's happening here, so I'm gonna have the main character explain it to you. Gee, thanks.
When you saw Wicked on Broadway, did you see Elphaba walking out in the middle of the stage every single scene change to explain where we were? No. Did they have less props in the background sometimes than this had at any point? Yes, but you always knew where we were.
We cut Dancing Through Life in half so that we could have Elphaba come out in the middle and go, the Osmonds Ballroom, and then pick the song back up.
When Lion King came out, did you see Timon and Pumbaa just walking out being like, the savannah? No.
That would have been funny, though. Can you imagine? Everybody would be like, what?
Lion King, the musical 1.5.
And it's the musical. It's still a musical, but Timon and Pumbaa sit at the front and make snide comments throughout the entire thing.
It's like the Muppets, but with Timon and Pumbaa.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, no, I couldn't make it past 17 and a half minutes.
It's bad. I watched the whole thing, though.
It's really bad. And not in a fun, enjoyable way. It disrespects to the source material. So even if you vaguely like the book, it sucks. Did you read the book? Are you sure you didn't go to Wikipedia and then copy words?
Did you read the Spark Notes for the book?
Why is this so bad?
Did you look up famous quotes from the book and go, yeah, I can make a musical about that? Because he even got some of the quotes wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For example, Charlotte. And that's when I knew things were going downhill. When it starts with a soliloquy of, first she read the line, blah, 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 it's known that if a rich man is single, he's in want of a wife. And then she closes the book and gives a soliloquy about how marriage is stupid and she is above it and she's not even looking for it. Except this is the 1800s. What else are you doing?
Darling, no. Elizabeth wants marriage, but she wants to marry someone that she loves because she's a romantic.
It's the society. What else is she going? Is she going to read in the parlor for the rest of her life? As nice as that sounds, she's going to get kicked out. She will be a spinster. That's why Charlotte married Collins, because she was all like, I don't want to be a spinster. I need security.
I mean, there are other things to do, but yes, you will end up as a spinster. You have to get married in this time period.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, you can do whatever you want in your free time. That's great. And you can do other things.
But it's not like she's going to have a career. She doesn't have any sort of property coming to her. So
Because being a woman sucks.
she doesn't even have any money coming to her, really.
Other than what her father gives her to buy things in, I can't remember what the town's called.
Meriton.
That one. I've read the book, I watched a movie, I watched a TV show, I watched a musical, I watched the other movie about zombies, and I can't remember that it's called Meriton.
Although, to be fair, it's actually skipped in the movie and the musical.
Yes, the movie and the musical don't talk about it. The zombie movie talks about it.
But yes, so that is why we will now be ignoring the musical for all of the upcoming ratings. It is out of the contest.
If I had to rate the musical, it would be rated
0.
the gum I found on the bottom of my shoe that I didn't know was there, that's been there all day and is kind of gross and disgusting, and you're like, oh, how long has that been there?
See, I'm going to give it a 0 because it's not even worth me thinking of something.
I thought of something just for you.
It's just not good. It didn't try. I'm not going to either. If it was not free, I would be livid.
There's a reason it was free.
We are very lucky it was free. There's a reason it is free. There is a reason the musical PR team is like, oh no, you should totally watch it. Don't believe the haters.
If I had to pay for it, I would have immediately been like, Sam, we're not doing this because I'm not going to make you pay for this piece of trash.
Found out how to do a refund on Amazon Prime Video.
Like, I demand a refund. I will pull out all of my Karen and I will use that pent up energy to get a refund on this musical. It was free. You didn't pay anything for it. I still want a refund.
I don't even think they would fight you too hard.
Amazon, I demand money for having watched this.
It'd be like, list reason. It's like, have you seen this? Have you actually watched this? Somebody comes back in. Fair.
I wouldn't advise it.
But yeah, the one fun fact about that is Jane is pregnant. I thought they did a rather good job in costuming. I feel like it's a little bit obvious.
They did, yeah. I got halfway, not even halfway. I'm pretty sure I the moment I saw her. I was like, oh, Jane's pregnant. Okay.
Yeah. I think they do the best they can.
It was very obviously some sort of community center play.
I don't even know.
It felt like our High School Musicals with the applause between scenes.
Yes, very polite applause.
Yeah, so I mean, the fact that Jane was pregnant, it didn't really throw me because I was like, small town, sure, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, Jane can sing. Yeah, she's playing the part well. They got Jane correct.
I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, she did great.
And she danced and everything, so honestly, I think that's a credit to the actress.
For real.
So many, I can't imagine doing that pregnant. That sounds terrible.
It does. I can't imagine being pregnant. That sounds terrible.
But we will move away from the musical and come to the actual question of whether the movie or TV show is better. By starting with, let's talk about casting. And we're going to go through and talk about all of the characters, whether we like the movie version or the TV version better and why. To start with, we got to have our main character, Elizabeth.
I'm going to insert this right here. I'm named after this character. Honest to God, this is where my mom got my name from.
Yes. So your opinion about Elizabeth is even more important, because I think Keira Knightley is just the best Elizabeth there is.
I like the one from the TV show better, personally.
Really?
I think it's partly because it has more of the lines of the book versus the movie, which cuts out a lot. If they'd done Keira Knightley in the form of the TV show with the more dialogue, I may have liked her better in that role. But since I didn't really get the same vibe off of her that I get from the book, I liked the TV show version better.
So one of the reasons I like it is because I do feel like the movie attempts to modernize a couple of the characters, which it does a much better job than the musical, obviously.
It definitely does a much better job.
And the thing I like about the Keira Knightley one is they make her even more of a feminist, and they also make her much wittier in that they give her a lot more one-liners and things to say extra. And then there's, of course, the whole thing with the entail. And in the book, it's only Mrs. Bennett being like, why is this a thing? And even Elizabeth and Jane are like, we've tried over and over to explain to her why it happens. And I'm like, what? But in the movie, Keira Knightley's character is like, because we can't give it to women. It's like, yeah, that's right. You would be a feminist. Let's go.
Yes, and they do that well, but I enjoy the more towards the original, personally. It feels more true to the time period, and it feels more true to the character.
Jane. I prefer the TV show. I think it's the same thing where she gets more screen time, and I feel like she's much more of a personality where I could totally see, she's really reserved. And so whenever she was with Mr. Bingley, she would have like this shy smile, and it was very cute, and you could totally see how someone from the outside who didn't know Jane would be like, she clearly isn't feeling anything, whereas you watching her, you're like, she's so cute, because you can see her in other ones where she doesn't really smile that much. She's very much reserved.
I liked the movie Jane, partly because she does have more visible emotion, and I personally think it still could be construed as general affection instead of attachment, depending on how you looked at it, especially since when you put into consideration that Darcy is relatively biased towards the relationship to begin with because of the family and the general standing of where their family is. So with that mindset, I could see him still being like, no, that's not love. She's just kind of like, okay, cool, yeah, this cute guy is, woo, yay.
Mary. I think the TV show is much better, mainly because Mary doesn't do a lot in the movie. She kind of gets overshadowed as she does in every situation, which at the end of the book, they do point out that Mary is happy that Jane and Elizabeth have left, so she could actually have some time to herself, not being compared to them.
Yeah, and I agree with you on this one. I like the TV show Mary better, and they cut a lot of Mary out of the movie just to make time for the main characters, because with Mary being a side character, so heavily a side character, she is probably the easiest to cut scenes out from. So I do enjoy getting to see more of Mary in the TV show version versus the movie. Other than when she's playing piano and then her dad makes her cry and she runs away. Which is all I remember about Mary from the movie, other than the intro where she's playing the harpsichord.
I agree. I think the movie scene singing Mary was funnier. They really hammed it up. The playing is actually funnier because I think the TV show has her playing the piano 3 different times, so it's a little bit more of a slow burn. Kitty. I would say it's a toss-up. They both do it well enough.
They look the same. They have the same general attitude towards it. They both managed to pull off 17-year-old crybaby very well.
I mean, because all she is Lydia's shadow until the end, where it's like, hey, you can't do anything anymore, and then they cry.
Yes. I do feel like there was more attitude in the one from the TV show versus the movie.
Yeah, Lydia and Kitty fought all the time in the TV show.
Which isn't very true to form.
Which isn't unrealistic, but it was noticeable.
Speaking as someone that has siblings, the movie is definitely more realistic with them fighting much more frequently than the book alludes to.
Yes.
Especially at that age.
Lydia. TV show.
They both suck. They're both awful characters.
They did, but the TV show made me so much madder, which is correct.
Yes, the TV show definitely is much more infuriating, which is definitely more correct. With the movie, they kind of gloss over it a little bit more.
Yeah, I feel like they have more time on the TV show, so they add a bunch of scenes of Lydia being stupid and reckless, like when she was running around which undressed in the 1800s is you're basically wearing the clothes. You put a little something over it, but you're dressed. Anyway, the one point where she's quote unquote undressed and she runs into Mr. Collins and she thinks it's hilarious. So that was an added scene, and there was a bunch of other added stuff with her. They also actually have the scene of her when she meets Elizabeth, and they change it a little bit in the TV show. It's not Elizabeth picking up Jane. They have it as Elizabeth and Mariah. I hate that. I know that's probably correct, but I hate that. And it's them two, and Lydia's like, oh, we've gotten you all this food, but you have to pay for it. That's actually in there, and there's so many more scenes of her with the soldiers, whereas the Lydia in the movie, there's an extra scene where the soldiers are marching, and she throws off her handkerchief, and is supposed to show, oh, she's a dumb teenager. What, are they going to stop and pick up your handkerchief? What the heck? But I feel like she's taken less seriously in the movie, which makes her less annoying. Whereas the TV show, they take her in all her seriousness, and it really pisses you off when she shows up and she's like, oh, you'll have to write to me because you have nothing to do, because married women have so much to do, and I'm so happy about Mr. Wickham.
No, Jane, I get your place now.
Oh my gosh, that was so... Oh.
Yes, you do, because you ran away and did something unseemly and almost ruined the reputations of yourself and all of your sisters so that none of you would be able to get married. But you can't seem to whack that into your tiny little skull.
No, and they actually show the scenes. They add this isn't in the book. They have scenes of Wickham and her hiding in London, and how the entire time she's like, oh, are we going to get married soon? He's like, soon. She's like, okay, let's go outside. Let's go to balls. Let's show ourselves off as the unmarried living together couple we are. She has no concept that this is a bad thing.
Which just points to how well her parents raised her.
Speaking of which, we are too Mr. Bennett.
TV show, Mr. Bennett.
It's kind of a toss-up.
Purely because there's a scene where they tell Mrs. Bennett that Lydia's getting married, and she's like, Lizzie, go tell whatever, ask him how much he'll give for the wedding clothes, right? And so Lizzie leaves the room, and you can hear Mrs. Bennett talking down the hallway, and the chatter off in the distance, and she comes into the office, and they kind of nod and smile at one another and stand there for a second, and then Mr. Bennett goes, shut the door, Lizzie. She's like, and nods and shuts the door, and I love that so much. They're like, we're both gonna get away from this or just a little bit.
One reason it's a little bit of a toss-up to me. The thing that they add in the movie is a bunch of little moments between either Mr. and Mrs. Bennett or one of the parents and the kids, and it makes it actually feel like a family. There are things like the scene where he's like, Mary, you need to stop playing so that the other women can have time. There's a scene later on in the ball where he sees Mary and he hugs her and she's crying and she's like, I practiced so much. And he's like hugging her like, I know. And so there are little moments like that where it actually feels like a family instead of a bunch of people living together that hate each other. And there was some stuff, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, which the whole thing in the book is there's a marriage without love. But it was kind of cute to see they have little moments where I think they kiss at one point and stuff. So that's why it's a toss-up. I kind of like the fatherly love that he has in the movie, but the TV show gives him more of his lines. Mrs. Bennett.
Neither.
TV show.
Hate that character.
She's so much more annoying in the TV show, and it's perfect. Her voice is exactly what I thought of when I read each of her lines.
She is very annoying in the TV show versus the movie.
Even the scrunched up facial features that she gives herself, like she scrunches her face a bunch, and it's so perfect. Oh, he's going to kill himself. He's going to duel and kill himself, so we shall be turned out by the Collinses. She even still had the one line where she's like, oh, me, I am so upset. What to do? Oh, but I'm so glad you're here, sister, to tell us the news of long sleeves. That is my favorite Mrs. Bennett line.
Yes, this is very important. Long sleeves are in fashion. Nothing else matters. Long sleeves.
Oh my goodness. She's so much better in the TV show. She's just so much more infuriating.
Well, she's much, much more annoying in the TV show.
Which makes her perfect.
Which makes her better from a book standpoint. I hate that character so much.
It's exactly how it's supposed to be.
I hate simpering characters or people, just in general, that are like, I've said from the beginning, I said from day one, blah, 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 when 5 minutes ago you were saying the exact opposite. Make up your mind. You can't always be correct.
Nope. Always correct. She always said it. It's always about her nerves. Have you thought about her nerves?
The bit with the smelling salts.
And it really makes more sense why Lydia is her favorite in the movie. Oh, you can just tell. Darcy.
TV show Darcy.
Me too. I've never met an actor where watching him stare at someone is interesting before.
I know he managed to pull off making it look like he really cared about her really well.
And I noticed in the beginning of the TV series, the way he stared at her had this little bit of hardness in his eyes, and he had a tightly closed mouth, and his facial features were set.
And he could very easily go from the stoic whatever at the beginning to near the end where he comes upon her crying and his demeanor completely breaks down and he's like, oh no, what's wrong? And it's just,
Yeah, but even near the end where he's once again is staring at her, there's a YouTube video called 7 Straight Minutes of Darcy staring at Elizabeth, because that's what he does a lot. But at the end, his pupils are more dilated. He has his mouth open slightly. He's not necessarily smiling, but he has a happier facial features, and it's very minute stuff. But Colin is very good.
Yes.
I want Keira Knightley and Colin together because that would just be my perfect Darcy and Elizabeth, but alas. I will say one thing for Darcy in the movie. He is unintentionally funny way too often. There's an entire meme about him being a head taller than everyone else at the ball, and everyone else is having a good time, and it's just his face over everybody else being stoic. And it's unintentionally funny.
It's like, can everybody see the stoic man? Yes. Is it because he's really tall? Yes.
Which a part of me feels like that's correct. Like, I feel like you kind of have to laugh at Darcy a little bit.
How does it feel being able to be seen from any part of the room?
Well, that way he can constantly look down on others.
But he's socially awkward. He just wants to go home.
A part of me wonders if he's actually that tall or if they got a stool and be like, here, stand on this. You need to be taller than everybody else.
He may actually be that tall. I don't know.
He's probably that tall, but still, that's what my mind is the director like, no, we have to have this shot and stand on this stool.
It's like this is completely unrelated and related at the same time. It's like in Shrek the Musical, the man they got to play Farquaad, a very, very short character, he walks around on his knees, right?
It's like 6 foot!
And what it is he's actually a very alarmingly tall man who happens to look like Farquaad on his knees.
He's so tall!
He's alarmingly tall.
There's one point where he actually stands up and you're like, holy crap. And of course, in the final curtain call, he's in a full uniform, like actually his height. And you're like, oh, hello, sir.
Very tall. The only way they can get that character to work is have someone who has legs long enough to be able to be a torso and just the top part of his legs to be Farquaad.
Yeah, and that's the one thing is they needed someone with a long enough torso for that to make sense.
Yes.
Then the only way to do that is to have a really tall dude.
And he looks like Farquaad, so I mean, it all works out.
So maybe that's what they did with Darcy. They were like, no, we need a man that's very tall so he can look down upon everyone.
But he also looks like how Darcy is depicted in the books too, though. So, I mean, it works out.
I don't know. The movie version also makes me think he's going to go home and go in the corner and write in his little journal about how everyone's stupid. Like, he had more teenage vibes to me than anything else.
No, the zombie movie one has more teenage vibes than anything else.
I love Darcy in the zombie movie. It's so funny.
I I like the character. I find his jaw very alarmingly square with long hair, and I don't find it attractive at all. The character itself is very attractive. However, the actor they got to play it,
I think he's funny as heck.
I can't get behind it because the long hair and the square jaw, I hate it. I hate it so much. But he cut off a zombie's head, and that's hot, man.
Bingley. This is a toss-up for me because I like both of them for different reasons.
Yes.
I think the TV show had a really, really charismatic and happy Bingley, but I think the movie showed off his more socially awkward side too, where it's like, oh, he wouldn't recognize that someone likes him because he's kind of socially awkward. And I don't know, he was so cute. He was cute in both of them. Bingley's my favorite. Bingley and Jane are my number one.
I have to say the movie Bingley, purely from the scene that is not in the book where him and Darcy are out on the lawn and he's trying to prep himself up and trying to figure out what the heck he's gonna say. Also partly because he's like, Miss Bennett, and Darcy's like, Mr. Bingley. And I'm like, yes, Darcy. It cracks me up.
That is very cute. Carolyn. So I will say, before I say which one I prefer, at least in the movie, they tried to actually make them look like siblings. Because in the TV show, Carolyn has black hair, Mrs. Hurst has blonde hair, and he has brown hair. And none of them have the same body shape or the facial features whatsoever that look similar. Carolyn has a really prominent long nose, but Mrs. Hurst has kind of softer features and they're much smaller, and then Bingley has completely different features. Like, they don't look like, if you stood them right next to each other, you would not know they were siblings. So at least in the movie, they did try to make it, oh, they look somewhat similar. But the TV show's better. She has more snark. When she's arrogant, she looks more, I don't know, Mean Girls. And I feel like that's more correct, whereas the TV show, she has this kind of tone the entire time where she talks like this, and it's very important. So when she delivers lines, they don't necessarily hit as hard, and it's kind of lame. And they also don't really play up the fact that Jane and her were friends at any point, and then the whole realizing that Carolyn was actually a fake friend. In the movie, they don't really play that up, and so you don't get that impact of Jane, stop being friends with her, she's clearly fake.
Jane, you were told.
And then at the end, when Jane figures out that she is a fake friend, you're like, yes, thank you. Because that's another part of Carolyn that sucks. So I like the TV show Carolyn better.
I also like the TV show Carolyn better because I feel like the snarkiness and underhandedness, it plays more towards the character, because a lot of her insults toward Elizabeth are kind of like underhandedly pretending to be polite, whereas the movie Carolyn is very, blatantly insult. I hate you, by the way.
And even there were a couple of scenes where I like how the insults that she gives, once again, very high school Mean Girls, is always like, oh, you find her attractive for her eyes? Oh, look at her eyes. Constantly look at her eyes. Bet you're glad you're not married to those eyes now because you realize her connections. And every time Darcy can be like, shut up, Carolyn.
What are you, 7?
I don't think the smartest way to undercut your romantic rival is to focus on her positive features and constantly point them out. Oh, honey. Wickham. I think it's a toss-up. I like different things about them.
I don't remember much about the movie Wickham.
I like how in the TV show, Wickham at first looks like a good person, but he also has, I don't know, something about him where once he turns from good to bad, the fact that he is so attractive and he looks so nice, it kind of pisses me off because it's like, no, you can totally get away with this. And that's the point of Wickham's character. You know, the whole one is good and the other has the appearance of it. But I like how in the movie, Elizabeth and Wickham have more of a connection. And so it makes it a lot sadder when he does that to Lydia, and it does feel more like a betrayal to Elizabeth and her family. So I don't know. It's a toss-up for me. You prefer the TV version?
Only because nothing from the movie Wickham, other than his face, really stand out to me at all. I don't remember much about the character in the movie.
How about the ribbon scene where they go to the ribbon shop and she teases him because he's like, oh, I'm a bad pick of ribbon, and she teases him a little bit. And he makes a half-hearted joke about the fact that no one pays attention to him because he's so lowly, and she thinks it's cute. At the time, she thinks it's humility, but really, he's a jerk and he hates it and he was a terrible person.
He is a terrible person, which is why I think it's less of a portrayal and more of a, wow, you sleazeball. You're really going to get back at her for knowing your secret now by attempting to seduce her sister.
I don't even know if it was that. I honestly think it was right. He was planning on running away, and Lydia just was very, I'll come with you. Because Kitty made it sound like they had a thing going for a while. And then there's at one point where Elizabeth's like, I bet he was like, I want to run away. And he wasn't going to turn down somebody saying, I'll come with you. And that's another thing. The movie version makes Wickham more of a player. It shows more scenes being with people, and they add a line where they talk about, oh, he's conned every merchant out of money and has been with each of their daughters or something like that. Okay, so these are very minor characters, but I was writing these down as stream of consciousness of who I remembered first. Mr. and Mrs. Gardner.
Oh, I love Mr. and Mrs. Gardner. They're great.
TV show.
I liked the movie ones better.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like they didn't have nearly as much time. Because at least in the TV show, they have, of course, Meriton.
I mean, there's less of that, but I like the way that they're played by the actor and actress in the movie version versus the TV show version. They feel more like real people.
I don't know. I didn't like the movie version, maybe because they changed it and it was no longer that Mrs. Bennett was related to the brother and she was now related to the sister. And then I felt like the sister acted more like Mrs. Bennett.
Was it that they changed the relation, or was it that Mrs. Bennett called her sister? Because they do that in the book too, and it's purely because it's a married couple thing. Instead of saying sister-in-law, they just say sister.
Either way, I don't know. She stood out in the book and kind of the TV show because she had Mrs. Phillips to be kind of Mrs. Bennett's equal, where Mrs. Gardner was kind of above that a little bit and was a little bit like, you guys are crazy. So it made a lot of sense why Elizabeth was like, I want to stay with you. Please take me away from here. She seemed very different.
I like the movie version better. I couldn't tell you why. I think it's probably because I like the look of the actor and actress better than the TV show version more than anything else, other than the fact that I enjoy that the aunt in the movie version seems more like an aunt. Personally, I prefer the movie version.
Collins. I like the TV show one better.
They're both disgusting.
They are, but I feel like they made the movie one too dry because he did things like, oh, I'm going to read these sermons to you, and oh, I'm going to follow Elizabeth around at the ball, but not really say much. And I don't know, the whole thing with him is that he wouldn't shut up. And I feel like they do that so much better. And the way they styled his hair and they put product in his hair, he just looked greasier. And it just, ugh.
It's a toss-up. They're both disgusting. I don't really want to pick one.
Both movie and book kind of skip over his courtship with Charlotte because they made this whole thing in the book. Mrs. Bennett telling Charlotte to please take him out of our house, but whatever. Where in the movie they made it seem like Mr. Collins was leaving after the proposal, whereas in the book he was like, no, I determined to stay the full amount of time. And I don't remember what they did in the TV show. I don't know, Charlotte just kind of walks up to Elizabeth and is like, hey, this is happening. So that's kind of lame. But if you had to pick TV show or movie or toss-up.
They're the same. Charlotte is Charlotte is Charlotte is Charlotte. Every Charlotte I've seen in every rendition, even the zombie one, they're all the same.
The only reason I like Charlotte in the movie better is they give her that one rant where she ends it with telling Elizabeth to stop judging her. That feels correct. That is what the words Charlotte was missing in the book, where she was like telling Lizzie off, because she does that in the movie. But in the book where she was basically explaining, I'm not like you, I'm not a romantic, I'm 28, I need to do this. And in the movie she tells Elizabeth to stop judging her. And yes, that is correct. Elizabeth needed to stop judging her.
I'm not a romantic. I need a husband, and this seems like one that I can potentially ignore for the rest of my life and have a house for the rest of my life.
And she's okay with that. And she is such a representation of certain women of the time who were literally just viewed marriage as a function of life.
And you had to. That was the only way to survive.
Yeah, she was 28. She didn't have money. And even in the book, it perfectly points out that she took advantage of the situation because she saw it and she was like, I'm going to do this. And so she did it. And yeah, Elizabeth needed to stop judging her. She needed to do what she needed to do. Lady Catherine.
That one's partly a toss-up because I like the energy given off of the one in the movie. The powerful, the entitled energy that just radiates off her, especially when she barges into the house to accuse Lizzie of being engaged to Mr. Darcy, and just radiates energy and just that white entitled nastiness. But in the TV show version, I love that she's a wheedling little simpering, I have to be in your business. What are you talking about over there? I need to know. I must be in the conversation, because that feels more true to the character in and of itself. So from the TV show perspective, I like that that feels more true to the character, but in the movie perspective, I do like how they give her more of an entitled white person air and the power that that exudes.
Yeah, I like the movie one mainly because once she is on screen, she is what you focus on. She demands your attention. She is a lady of respect. She looks exactly like you expect her to look. The way she sits, because that was something that bugged me in the TV show. The woman in the TV show hunched over and made herself smaller. And I was like, that doesn't seem right. Whereas in the movie, she sat straight up. She made herself appear bigger than she actually was, which is very true to the character because she has a title, but not necessarily anything of importance. We're going to skip over her daughter because she doesn't talk in either of them. She means nothing.
She is insignificant and sickly in both.
She is a prop just as much as a chair.
They don't really look related. Well, that's not true. I think the one in the TV show looks more related to her mother than the other one, personally.
I don't know. They're both wearing wigs. Or at least the one in the TV show, because she has the fake curls and stuff. And I was like, that's a wig. I doubt that's your real hair. She's a prop. She's just as much a prop as a chair or a table or a pianoforte. She doesn't talk. Cameron barely manages to glimpse at her. Miss Darcy. That was kind of a toss-up to me. They're both cute and sweet. I kind of like the relationship that she has with her brother in the movie more, mainly because they do allow for them to be more touchy-feely, and like he hugs her and she's so excited to see him, whereas the TV show is more realistic and they wouldn't show that degree of affection. But I don't know, I can't decide on whether I like either the better. I think they're both played fine. She comes in the third act anyway, so she's a very small part.
It's been so long since I've watched movie/TV show. One of them played the character more true than the other. I can't remember which one is which. If I looked at the pictures, it wouldn't help me because they all run together. So I know I like one more than the other, and I couldn't tell you which one it is.
I feel like that goes to toss-up then, at least on my little tally.
It has to be, because I don't know.
Colonel Fitzwilliams. That's a toss-up.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Neither of them really played it up any. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I like the movie better because Fitzwilliam and Elizabeth actually seem kind of cute. And I swear, every single video game that is Pride and Prejudice, where it's a dating sim or something, I swear every single one of them has Colonel Fitzwilliams as an option, and it does not make sense in the book. But in the movie, I saw it. I saw a little bit. They were a little bit cute. And he also didn't look super older than her.
In the book, they talk about how she thinks that he's going to propose to her. And there's this whole, I think he likes me. He's kind of nice. That may be okay. And then he's like, but I don't have the means to do that, so I'm not going to do that. Or at least that's what she thinks he means. But what he's actually saying is, Darcy's going to ask you to marry him. But she doesn't pick up on that at all. So, I mean, they are potentially an item in the book because they're on a walk where when she's like, and he may ask me to marry him. And then he's like, but I don't have the money to whatever, the blah, 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 because I'm the third son, blah, 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 blah. And they talk about that for a bit. I don't remember how they get into it, but they're like, and then, you know, yeah, Darcy prevented an unwhatever marriage. And that's where he mentions that Darcy stopped Bingley and Jane from getting together. There's a whole thing about how Elizabeth thinks that the Colonel likes her.
Yeah, but I felt it more in the TV show where they actually felt like they had a connection versus the movie where he literally is just a mouthpiece to be like, hey, Darcy did a thing.
People alluded to it and she wasn't against it, but because he will not keep money, they were like, but it's not a good idea, so we're not going to.
And that was weird because they show him at church, and so they actually have a scene of Collins in church. And there's a weird scene where Collins slips up and says intercourse, and I guess that was like a hint at, oh, he really wants to get some from his wife, but isn't getting any? That was a weird scene. Not completely sure. My only guess is he doesn't get any from his wife, and he's upset about it. I guess that's what they're hinting at, but no clue where that came from. All right, so overall story plot.
TV show is more true than the movie. But I like the movie though because the way that they compact it all together makes it feel more powerful from an emotional standpoint. Meaning the movie always makes me cry and the TV show does not.
The TV show is more correct in that it has more of the lines, it has more of the plot points, it has more of the characters because the movie completely cuts out Mrs. Hurst and Mrs. Phillips and all of Meryton. But I feel like the movie is closer to the emotional truth. And as a creative writing professor once told me, the only truth in art is the emotional truth. So theoretically, the movie is more true to the book, even though the more correct.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Which is why the movie always makes me cry and the TV show doesn't.
And so those are kind of my thoughts on it. I feel like the movie makes me feel more of the emotions that I felt reading the book, whereas the TV show, I feel like, yeah, I totally watched the book, but it didn't feel the same. And so that's why I kind of prefer the movie. If I was going to watch either one of them, I think I would pick the movie to kind of get those happy feels.
Yeah, my go-to when I need a good cry because I'm lonely as all heck is usually the movie.
Okay, so our final tallies, which is kind of funny because I made that whole big spiel, is technically I have 7 for the TV show and 4 for the movie, which I think just means I want the TV show characters to be in the movie, and that would be my perfect. Where you are tied 4 for 4. Because you had a lot of toss-up characters.
I like Pride and Prejudice, period.
But yeah, overall, I think both of them do a really good job. Neither of them are like the musical where they straight up disrespected. You can tell both the makers and the actors were very excited to be there for the project. I feel like Jane Austen is often considered one of the classics, like a serious part for actors. And so if you're a serious actor, you can do that. But I think they handle it very, very well. I just want to Keira Knightley and Colin Firth. I love that actor so much and everything he does. So I just want him in the movie. And it would be great. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. If you would like to support us further, you can check us out on either Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at EWM_Bookclub. We post fun book content, and you might get a sneak peek of what is coming before we even announce it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Lizzie Sawyer.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time.